Hey everybody, how are you? Happy Sunday. Hopefully everybody is staying safe during these very interesting times. So I am going to share on social media, get everybody in here. I think we are live. Yes. Oops, I do this every time. I forget to turn down YouTube that I kind of have as a test going on. So let me share on social media. We have a very special guest this evening, and we'll get to her in a moment. Let me get in here, share, and we'll get it all out and about. And oops, I didn't mean to do that. Happy Sunday. Please bear with me while I'm trying to get everything on social media. And, I'm hearing a beeping. What is that beeping? Beeping is not good. Okay, I think I have it shared every place except our online support group. Hold on one second. And let's get it here. Cool. And let me get back to where I was. It'd be neat if there was another person to do all this stuff. Let me get the comments open. So, hey Harry, I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome to the chat. How is everybody? Happy Sunday. So tonight, and I'm going, oops, we already had a disconnect. Our first.
What happened there? It just dropped and it shut down.
Okay, I got it. So you're there. Good. As long as you're there, we're about to go to you. So we already had our first technical glitch this evening. We're probably going to have more as we try to make this show more interesting and more educational for everybody. How many people we got? 102 people. Hello everybody. And Derek is in the house. Waiting for a moderator because last week kind of got interesting, and I am sure this week will be the same. But we have a special guest. I know you guys loved it when we brought on Eric and Derek and Addie and Brad and then Theo. And I learned about this woman who is unhoused in Chatsworth, and she's running for the neighborhood council. She is currently living outside unhoused. And I have her on the line, and this is Rita. Say hello to everybody, Rita.
Hi. Hello.
So I am probably going to make a mistake at some time and call you Laura because I have a niece that is named Rita, and my mom's name is Laura, and the two of them are like, together. So whenever I hear Rita, I think Laura. So please forgive me. Rita, where are you Skyping in from?
Well, over in Chatsworth, kind of nearby where I stay, and my friend's motorhome, RV.
Yeah. So it's raining in Chatsworth, and you're normally in a tent, right?
Yeah. I'm a pretty palatial one, but but a tent nonetheless. So
Yeah. So tell me your story. Tell me what you did before homelessness, how you ended up homelessness.
well, I mean, I always was the type of person that always had a job and worked all the time, and I worked in the apparel industry after I put myself, through college and stuff, and then the bottom fell out of the economy back in 2008. I don't know how many people remember that, but that was pretty awful for the apparel industry out here in LA. Everything kind of just dried up in a really short amount of time, and so I that was the beginning of my struggles. So I kind of moved around a little bit, and then got back up on my feet, and then ended up homeless again, except this time with my very young daughter and my three dogs, in an RV out here in Chatsworth, where we got kind of stranded. And so the rest is history. Now I'm in Chatsworth and entrenched.
Now, how long have you been sleeping outside?
Um, Sleeping outside for about 2.5 years,
Oh my God.
and before that, RV.
Now, is your
Right.
daughter still with you? I know you still have your dogs.
And my daughter's not. My daughter's with my father in Texas right now.
And what kind of dogs?
I have a pit bull and two Pomapoos.
Okay. And what are their names?
Petey, her real name is Petra, and then we have Maggie the Muffin and Puppy Girl.
Maggie the Muffin. So tell me, what is homelessness like in Los Angeles? What is homelessness like in the San Fernando Valley? And just so you guys all know, if uh, we didn't have this virus thing going on and it was the world is shut down, I would be doing an interview in person with Rita. But since this virus has kind of messed up everything, we decided to do the Skype interview. So if you guys got questions, hold them for a bit. I'm not going to be able to scroll back through the chat, but right now, opening it up to Rita just to tell me what's a day in the life of homelessness like.
Well, it's definitely been a journey. I think from the beginning of actually hitting the streets, from where I was no longer staying in RVs anymore because they were being impounded left and right. I think a lot of us were pushed onto the streets that way, and then you kind of drift from the street. At least out here, we kind of have a good situation where we can. It's more rural, so we can kind of be along these more rural areas, like these right of ways by the tracks and stuff. That's where I stay. I stay by the tracks because it's out of the way and I don't have to deal with the Hope team mainly. And that can be, they're always showing up right as soon as you leave to go get a drink of water or something like that. They show up and they take all your shoes or something, and it's just really kind of ridiculously random. And you almost wonder if it's conspiracy after 4 or 5 times it happening like that. So
Well, wait. Before you go on, the Hope team is who's doing the sweeps.
sometimes, yeah, it's that's a I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Hope team, but we like to call it the homeless out of the public eye. And basically they tout this agenda of doing some sort of public benefit, by reducing your possessions to 60 gallons or less. um, and I have some interesting videos of experiences with them. And they basically will show up and they get to decide what of your possessions you keep and which ones you don't. And so it's really ridiculous. And sometimes, depending on the type of response it is, and I'm not really too clear on what the different aspects of the responses are, because it's always the same officers that show up and have amnesia about a prior instance where we had contact. As a matter of fact, when we were removed from this encampment that was just down the way last year in April, well, 20 we've been April 2019, yeah, 2019 April, where we were removed from this area. And they came through on a daily basis. So you basically just have to park there with your things. I mean, and especially if you've been moved out, with no real constructive notice, which is a bad habit that they have, is not posting any constructive notice, which I'm like, well, how hard can it be to write a note?
Yeah,
And
and
so
I thought the Hope team was Lhasa. I didn't know. Well, it's sanitation and everybody. I didn't
Mhm.
hear you.
Oh, I said that's LAPD, and in our area, specifically Devonshire Division, that does the Hope team. There are four. I know there are four branches of the Hope team, and I couldn't quote which areas specifically they're out of, but there's one from Devonshire, and that's the one we deal with.
Yeah. And so it's an LAPD thing, the Hope team.
And LASA has support on that.
Right. But and that's not LASA's fault. It's the politicians that are, instead of LASA providing care for you, they got LASA standing by on these sweeps, which is just crazy. Totally, the whole thing is a mess.
Yeah, try getting a bottle of water from a LASA representative, when they're doing a sweep too, and it's nearly impossible, so.
Can you explain that?
I can't explain that. You'd have to ask LASA about that. But I've been in a part of sweeps where it's like, can I get a bottle of water? They see you huffing. It's this like hot time of year, and you're just like about to have a stroke and stuff, and they won't give you a water.
Oh my gosh! And hopefully they're not drinking water in front of you.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, it just depends, hopefully they're not drinking alcohol in front of you at that time,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So, you're about ready, or you're not about ready. You're running for the neighborhood council in Chatsworth. And right now the voting is postponed, because of the virus. But, so Derek is in the chat. And Derek is homeless in the Bay Area in Oakland, and he's running for mayor. So we got two homeless politicians on the stream tonight. So tell me about what you're running, why you're running, and how it makes you feel.
Well, it's looking like maybe I should up the stakes and run for city council instead, because of the stuff going on with John Lee and Mitchell Englander, being crooked and doing all that obstruction of justice and whatnot. And, it's interesting is that particular office likes to use homelessness as a way to divert or deflect attention from those corrupt activities that they practice, which is all coming to light amidst the coronavirus, which is kind of swept that under the rug a little bit, but I'm thinking if he gets ousted, maybe I should up the ante, because right now it's just looking like neighborhood council is a lot of community impact statements written for free.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't even, I know of Venice has a neighborhood council. I'm not really that much of a politics person, but walk me through how you found out about it and why you decided to run.
Well, Los Angeles has 99 neighborhood councils. And this is, I learn stuff every day, really. And so I'm no expert by any means. As a matter of fact, I really kind of don't like politics, but I think it's necessary in order for us to, defend our civil liberties, which are being completely raped at this point. But I got interested in it. Somebody had suggested it to me. Said that I might be able to be an effective, because Chatsworth is predominantly NIMBY. So, not in my backyard people. And a lot of them are very much kind of hateful. And, there's a lot of vigilante groups out here specifically, they've got this like weird mentality or something that, we're all these evil things that need to be swept off the face of the earth, or gassed or something like that. And it's crazy what people believe out here, on the other side, on the flip side in the community, people think that they're going to round them up into FEMA camps and gas them, which apparently is going on almost to a degree, except it's going to be community rec centers, and they're probably going to lock the doors and set it on fire,
Well, I don't think they're going to set it on fire, but since you already went there, how do you feel about these community rec centers coming in? And go ahead.
I've been fielding a lot of that question around lately, and I'll just say my personal opinion is I am not going to a shelter. You're going to have to shoot me first, as how I feel about it, because I don't think it's a solution. I think maybe it is for certain people. Maybe people that require a lot of the wraparound services that they're always trying to, validate to the public so that they can get more funding, which all we've seen is just an egregious waste of public funds. It's like they have limitless budgets or something to do all these sweeps and to build housing, which they're not building, and to do all these things, which is essentially boils down by the time it gets to the local level is just peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in brown bags, with no water.
Yeah.
And,
And
and I,
for those of you that don't know, governments are scrambling right now, something to do with homelessness. I wish there was this urgency 5, 10 years ago. Glad the urgency is there. But what they're doing is they're creating, they're taking in Los Angeles, for example, they're taking the parks and recreation centers and making dormitory style shelters. And although they're trying to have the cots 7 feet separated, you still have common areas. You have, bathrooms, people come and go. They'll either be bringing the virus with them or taking them out. It's safer in many ways to stay out on the streets where you can be. I mean, shelters suck to begin with, right? Shelters just suck.
yeah.
So and they're investing this lot now in California. Supposedly, Governor Newsom and hopefully in other cities they'll be doing this or looking at getting hotels. I know Derek, who's in the chat, is homeless. Really wants to do the cruise ship thing. I've never been a big supporter of that, but you know what? They could. The cruise ships are empty right now. Pull up a couple to the Port Los Angeles or San Pedro and have thousands of homeless people get individual rooms. You know what I mean? That is a smart solution. It's concerning. Somebody earlier, I won't say what city, showed some photos. They're going into like the convention centers and they're putting mats on the floor, very similar to what happened after Katrina, if you remember. And the one that I saw, they're still kicking homeless people out during the day. So the idea is to protect them from the virus, right? And you're giving them a cot on the floor, and then, right, you kick them out during the day where they're back, and then they come. It's just madness.
It's almost as absurd as the Hope Team, which will take your belongings and go and store them in a location only to let you call them to bring them back to you, and they may or may not be your belongings, So what sense does that make? Obviously, there's very, very disturbing, disturbing what's on the table for the future. As far as I doubt the capabilities of a lot of people in the administration out here to be able to handle this crisis.
Yeah. Well, they I think, like, for instance, so I queued up, I was going to read them. I'll just talk about a couple of them. Last week in Los Angeles, and I talk about Los Angeles a lot. You guys know this. It's where my heart is. It's where I was homeless. And the CDC just came out with recommendations that said stop the sweeps. Last week, thank goodness for the advocates, they got tents up all day approved, which is great. I didn't even, I'm going to be honest here. I told a couple of the advocates they shouldn't even ask for it because they'll never get it. I never thought in my lifetime I would see politicians vote for tents up. Never, ever. And they got it. I was wrong. I'm glad I'm wrong. But they still voted for criminalization. How crazy is that? And now the CDC has said sweeps should stop, and my bet is they're not going to stop, even though the CDC, and they're not going to stop until a sanitation worker gets sick or the sanitation workers refuse to come in.
And there was two sides to that. The flip side is that we're going to continue doing sweeps. They voted tremendously for that, which I was really surprised on that, how many people voted in favor of that, because it just flies in the face of any kind of social responsibility. And there's another thing is that I think that we already got it, and we're already over it, and so what's
Yeah.
that going to do? You're going to hold your breath and wait for everybody to go into these shelters, and none of us get sick. We're just going to go in there and be like, have to lie on these cots, and like look at each other, and then it's just weird.
Well, the missing ingredient, or I gotta say, is what this is all shown to me, and I've been saying it for years, is the homeless sector is built on a house of cards. They're not even prepared for the homelessness we have today. In 6 months to a year, so many 2 to 3 million people have already lost their jobs. 2 to 3 million people lost their jobs last week. That is crazy. Unfortunately, Rita has been outside for a while, but she's learned how to survive. These are a million people going into homelessness that don't have a clue how to survive, and there's no support for them. That is really scary.
I made a brochure for it.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my! I would like to see that. You're going to have to email me. So,
laws you should familiarize yourself with, and some other stuff in it. So
yeah. Now, hey everybody, start thinking about some questions, and I'm just going to ask Rita, because you brought up NIMBY, which is not in my backyard, and Chats. I used to little inside baseball. I used to work in Chatsworth. I lived in Hollywood, and I won't tell you what industry I worked in. Chatsworth in the Valley is known for some interesting industries, and the huh.
I said that's what I always bring up. I'm like, this is the capital of.
Yeah. We'll let that one slide. But you have so many NIMBYs, not in my backyard, and if you get elected, and let's hope you do, you're going to be on this council, the only homeless person, with people that don't understand homelessness. Some may have some compassion, but others are just going to hate homeless people. What do you think that's going to feel like? Are you ready for that?
You know what? I am accustomed to people not liking me, and I didn't do this so that people like me. I really don't care if people like me. Honestly, I have had people suggest to me that I should say, keep my conversation, all nice and tidy and neat and white picket fence, so that nobody doesn't like me. And I've never approached it in that manner. I've always just been try to be respectful and offer real information and think about solutions and that sort of thing, instead of just a bunch of gobbledygook nonsense. We're just going to gack at each other at this table over Robert's Rules of Order. Well, you just throw that out of the window, because I'm a habitual meeting crasher, so
Good.
meetings like crazy. I'll show up 30 minutes late and the conversation just started. It's like I'm lucky to even be there at that time, because it was such a pain to get out the door.
Yeah.
Because I got 3 dogs and stuff, and basically you have to leave them to guard themselves. Like, all right, don't do anything crazy, but they just really just bark at people.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to affect some change.
I think so. I mean, I think that's what a lot of it is that, there's probably not too many interaction. There's not a lot of interaction that those people have had with people, and now they're going to be forced to interact with me.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. You ready for some questions?
Sure.
So I have been posting Rita's GoFundMe link. She put it up really quick for me. She's asking for $1 million. If you happen to have it, please give $2 million. I am sure the little bit I know of Rita, she's going to spread the love with the community. But if you have $5 or $10, everything helps. She'll get a photo and a description up later. She just really quick put it up because she had one up for her dogs, and I asked her to do this because I knew you guys. There's also a link in the description if you're watching this after and you're not checking out the chat. Go ahead.
First thing we're gonna get is a van with lots of windows, and then we're gonna put it all in $1 bills and drive around with it loosely wadded in the van so it flies out the windows.
Hear
You
that?
know?
Hear that? So if you got millions, please, I want to see that. You know, when I lived in Hollywood, I had a third floor apartment with a balcony. When I first, my first apartment after homelessness, and there was a car chase, and they were literally throwing money out the window. And they actually, you know, you're watching it on the TV, and you're going, "Oh my gosh, they're coming down my street." I didn't run out, but it was probably because people were cheering them. You know what I mean? You know, they're throwing money. Everybody was cheering them. So let's go to some questions. Let's see. Addie's got one. Addie, who is a moderator in the chat, formerly homeless, probably not totally housed because in November she might be homeless again. But she's asking, have you noticed any more hostility towards you since you started running for office?
Um, no, not really. Not towards me. I mean, there's been a lot of, luckily, there's been a lot of other stuff going on, so that they've been kind of distracted, with each other. There's some people that, but I haven't ever attacked anyone, so I don't, I have actually, no, actually I have, believe it or not. I forgot about it though. There's many people that I guess, feel as though like every homeless person is, some sort of junkie. So I've been getting posts, on Twitter and on Facebook about, oh, she's just a junkie anyway. So, and then to respond to that, I usually post that song by Poe called Junkie, you know.
That's a good
So,
response. Wake them up. Be unconventional. Theo, I think you know Theo. Theo is now in the chat. He said hello to Council Member Rita. So he's already calling you by your official name. Any more questions? People are saying they have your vote. Yes, if you're, this is going to be a Los Angeles specific election. I mean, if you don't live in Los Angeles and you want to support Rita, donate to her GoFundMe. That'll be a big help. And if you're in Los Angeles, of course, especially in the San Fernando Valley, Chatsworth area, vote, 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 vote. So let me see. Jeff asked, what jobs have you held before you were homeless?
oh, I've had a lot of jobs. When I was very young, I had my first business was making wood duck boxes that I sold to my uncle's co-workers, and I was like 13 years old, and I made quite a bit of money doing that, actually, believe it or not. And I was able to buy myself a very expensive leather jacket with patches on the back of it when I was like 13. I had it like way ahead of everybody. So um, I worked I worked as a secretary for a long time. It's a thankless, awful job, and pretty much got tired of doing that. I worked in telecom, in answering the phone for USSB and Ticketmaster. I made like $4 an hour or something working for Ticketmaster. That was a loveless job. And then I went to school predominantly for landscape design. I was going to be going for phytoremediation was my ultimate goal, but I decided I didn't want to be in a lab all the time. So I scaled back. I went from Texas to California, and I started working at McCabe's Guitar Shop in Santa Monica. I worked there for for a long number of years, and went to school for fashion design. And then I started working in the apparel industry, and I was a production manager in the apparel industry for a vertical private label manufacturer. And we did a lot of large labels. And like I said, in 2008, ASAP had their global sourcing show to make in China. And basically, a lot of our clientele took their production to China, thinking that they were going to save all this money. And really, that caused a lot of smaller labels to go out of business. That decision, it was a bad decision that they made. And that was, I think, partly influenced by the American Apparel campaign, that, um, you know, portrayed the apparel industry as all these sweatshops in Los Angeles when, our sewers were being paid top dollar, either by ticketed operations or, you get paid like $33 an hour to run a more complicated machine or something. But everybody was very well compensated for their positions there, as sewers and stuff. So that was all just a big hype campaign. And, so that American Apparel could sell overpriced T-shirts to people that were, didn't know anything about the industry. So, but it was hard to find work after that, and I kind of just floated around, and I did some other things. And now I'm just trying to do the organization to get some affordable housing, some really actual affordable housing out there is my main priority goal. All this political stuff is just kind of along the way, to try to effectuate something that's really real,
Yeah. Well, we have a few things in common because I lost everything in the '08 crash. And what's going on, I've shared openly on social media a few times because what's going on now is really scary. And I think, and a couple people are in the chat that are formerly homeless, you never lose it. You never lose that fear. And in '08, I lost everything, and it wasn't, I was powerless. I went from homeless to homeowner, and I wanted to work. I just crash. And I was headed back to homelessness, and I had everything ripped out from under me, and it was very scary. And it has all the feelings, this coronavirus has all the feelings of that on steroids. Because you see it's affecting everybody. It's affecting the world, and jobs are shut down. And I'll be candid, and there's some wonderful support happening. And I lost my house. Nobody helped me. My dad gave me vitamins, okay? Nobody helped me go from homeless to homeowner. I bought a 3-bedroom house, 2-car garage, pool in the backyard myself. And then I lost it. And there was no support. So while I'm seeing wonderful support being voted on for people to keep their houses, it brings back that, why didn't you help me? You know what I mean? And this coronavirus has me going through two things. You get scared for yourself. Invisible people took a serious hit. You get scared for yourself, but then you get worried about other people. And one thing I know, homeless people are survivors. Rita's going to survive. Derek's going to survive. Addie's going to survive. It's the people that are losing their jobs now that are it's really, really, really scary. Totally scary.
Yeah, and you have to, as somebody who's homeless, you think about that, and then you think about them, and the transformation of personal character they're going to go through when they have to, when they come into this community. And are we going to be as aidful to them as they were to us? Probably not.
Yeah. There's a wonderful, his name is Cheech, and he's from Austin. And his video is on invisible people. It's one of my favorite because he does this little rant where he says, he's almost winding up like a joke. And he's like, there's a policeman, a rich person, and a minimum wage worker. And they all end homelessness. You know what's going to happen? We're going to help them. And when he was winding up like that, I thought he was going to say they're going to have a hard time, And he's like, no, because we know what homelessness is like. And I have found, like Theo just mentioned in the chat, Rita, you're often out helping your homeless neighbors. You're often out feeding and helping people around you. And, as you're going to be a politician, it's not a photo moment for you. You're helping your neighbors because you care, right? And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, you have to, because, I can get mad at people sometimes, anybody can get mad at somebody, and then I see them in some bummer state, and it's like, okay, all right, fine, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't let people
Yeah.
suffer.
Yeah.
It's just, it's terrible. I mean, if you've suffered, then you know what it's like, and so then, you get locked in this pattern of needless suffering, and it's only gotten worse out here. I mean, but we've all just tried to make it better for ourselves,
Yeah.
so now we have like our little, spot, and that's important because that is as close to home as you're going to get, and I mean, like I said, we have a kind of a unique situation out here where we're kind of rural, but we're still in Los Angeles, so I don't know. I wasn't really with the living on the street kind of thing. I think it's a lot, I'd rather live in the dirt. The dirt.
Yeah. Um, have you, I don't know if you've watched any Invisible People videos, but at the end, I ask everybody what their three wishes are. And somebody, Slim Clampton, wants to know what your three wishes. If you had three wishes, now normally we're not ending, people. We're still going to go for a bit, but normally I ask this at the end. But since Slim asked this a bit ago and has been waiting, I thought I would ask you now. What are you? If you had three wishes, what would they be?
A million ducks. I mean, a million bucks. No, does that count as two? Oh no, um, no, I'm kidding. My three wishes would be, wow, that's a good one. My three wishes would, my first one would be to be with my children. That would be my first wish. And my second wish would be for everyone else to be able to be with their children, and that way we could have our families in this time of, you know, crisis, where I think that's the most important thing. And that's just something that I really, really feel very strongly about because I see that aspect of America really tear people apart, especially out here in homelessness, where you have a lot of, women my age that and older, and you see the effects of what DCFS has done to them by robbing them of their children. And I think that that's a really sad thing, and I think that needs to end in America. That's my other number one goal is to tear DCFS apart brick by brick if I have to, and so I have a long journey ahead of me, but I think it's terrible. And I would also, wish for everyone to be able to seek shelter from the elements without being persecuted for it. I mean, even rats are allowed to dig holes to get out of the rain, but they just expect you to go stand in one spot. That's what I mean. I think that those are the two elements of the preservation of liberty. You know, that's the core elements is your family and the right to seek shelter from the elements so that you don't freeze to death. You know, and so shoving us all in one room is not the answer. I don't feel that it is. I think that's something that's going in the wrong direction for America. It's not in keeping in line with any kind of our constitutional guarantees.
I think there was one more. That was two, right? Because the first one you were just joking.
Saying for me, and then I was saying for everyone else. I guess we could lump those into one. I just wanted to make sure that everybody got their kids back.
Got
You
it.
know,
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. If you don't mind, I've got to go on a little rant because somebody asked a question here that I'm very passionate about. So, Dark Knight 178945. Right now, 2 million people lost their job last week. 2 to 3 million. And you're saying homeless people should go get a job? Okay. There are homeless people. The leading cause of homelessness is the lack of affordable housing. Rents have gone up 75% in the last 5 years. Now, because of the coronavirus and the shutdowns and the stay at home, people are losing their jobs and their income. A month ago, a growing demographic was homeless people living in their tents or RVs and going to work. This idea of get a job is just ridiculous. We have to fix the affordable housing crisis. We have to get people jobs. Do you know anybody that's hiring a homeless person? Do you know anybody that's hiring at all? No, they're laying off people. Do you know anybody that's hiring homeless people and providing a shower so that they don't offend their coworkers? No, you don't, right? Do you know anybody that's hiring homeless people and providing enough upfront money so that they can get transportation, some food, maybe first and last month's rent so they can get an apartment? No, you don't. It's not there. This idea of get a job, get a job is bullshit. And I knew I was going to swear tonight because when YouTube had us do the little clicky thing, I clicked that there was going to be cuss words tonight. And thank you for letting me. Just get a job. No, I get, in defense, it's something that America thinks. This bootstrap idea that if you work hard, you're going to have a better life, and it's a paradigm that is like a fairy tale because people need boots. To bootstrap, you need boots. So instead of saying get a job, what you need to say is, how can I help you get a job? How can I help you with food? How can I help you with showers? How can I help you social distancing or get hand sanitizers or all this other madness that's going on? So anyways, back to Rita. Rant's over. And please start putting questions. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I mean, I feel the same way. I feel that, they create this dynamic where you're stuck. A lot of people are stuck because it's like, you can't, like I said, you can't walk away from your things because you'll come back from going to get something to drink, after a major sweep, and then they'll come through the Hope team and take all your shoes like they did with me, and I'm like, whoa, what happened? I was gone for like 15 minutes. And I was like, I don't know. They came through and they just decided what they were going to take. Well, that was all my shoes, and I had to walk around barefoot. I mean, I had flip-flops on at the time. It's not.
Kelly Jordan asked the question. It's not really directed at either one of us, and she says, "Is there a way you could give me advice on my son living in Ventura, California, at the river bottom? It's bad. Thank you." And as a mom, I will tell you what my parents did, and I don't give advice, because if it backfires or something, then you're going to come to me and say, gosh, you told me to do this. No, you've got to make up your own mind and your own decision. And you really didn't give enough information. I don't know if drugs are involved, mental illness involved, or what is going on, and I don't necessarily need to know. I will tell you what my parents did. My parents provided me with a pager. Yeah, I'm that old. Okay, there was no cell phones. They paid for my storage unit so I wouldn't lose my shit. Thank God for that. And they let me out there. And they used to say to me every night. Or not every night. I used to call to try to manipulate them. And they used to say to me, "Why can't you stay sober?" And I would tell all these different stories, and I would try to get them to send me money. And then I got this idea, why don't you go to AA? And I thought they would go to AA, hear some people talk about, their addiction, and that they would come back and send me money, and I would get an apartment and my life would be better. So the next night I called. They allowed me one phone call a day. And the next night, I called, and they, I said, "Did you go to a meeting?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Are you gonna send me money?" And they said, "No." And I go, "What? You're not? What? Didn't you go to the meeting?" And they go, "Yeah, we did. And we met this Bill guy who said leave you out there." And they did the tough love thing. And why that was important for me, and why I preface this for advice. I don't know your son's situation. I was a drug addict. I had a heavy-duty addiction. I have a friend of mine who is a very personable person. I mean, when he can get a job right away, good paying jobs. Next thing you know, he's a manager, he's a boss making killer money. And he goes back to drinking and using, and he ends up in jail or a mental institution. Then he goes to recovery, and he comes out and he does it again, does it again. I have 24 years sober. And the reason I have 24 years sober is because I worked my ass off to stay sober. Now, I don't judge people doing drugs or whatever. The point of this is what I'm trying to say to any parent: pray for your children, be supportive, don't close the door, right? But also don't let them run over you. When you have addiction or mental illness, or just by the nature of homelessness, it can be very scary. Have some compassion, but set some boundaries, and leave the door open. I mean, I'm in my mom's house. My mom's in a home now, but I've been taking care of her for a year. I've been back to family reunions, blah, blah, blah. My family's been restored. But for a long time, even after I got sober, my family, because I fucked up a lot, right? So my family was destroyed, but it eventually got back together. So there is hope. I don't know what your son is going through. All I can say is one of the things that we're human is that when somebody tries to change us, this is the one thing we do. Like the gentleman said, why don't they get a job? Because it makes sense to him. I'm not faulting you, Dark Knight 178945. It's what people think. And it's easier to drive somebody else's life than our own, right? So, one thing as humans, and this has nothing to do with homelessness, when somebody tries to change us, we usually rebel, right? And it's, the old saying, if you love somebody, let them free, right? So have compassion, leave the communication open. Even though my parents would not allow me to come home, they allowed it to be open, that I could call once a day. And so that there was still communication. And get support for yourself. If it is addiction or mental illness or something, there's wonderful support groups online, Al-Anon, different ones. Get support for yourself, for other people going through it. Hey, Rita, what would you say to a mom whose son is homeless and they're worried? They don't know what to do.
Well, that's a really tricky question, because of the fact that there are so many facets to the, homeless individual. And so I don't know, anything about her son, but there could be a multitude of possibilities there. But I absolutely concur with you on that about being supportive. I talk to my dad every day. Every day I call him, and I talk to my daughter every day as well, as many days as she's not going crazy trying to, run around with her cousins and stuff. But I think that that's a big deal. His family is a big deal. And I hid that from my family for a while. And I thought that, I was doing that because they would not be supportive of, me and what I was doing. They had my brother had a lot of difficulties kind of wrapping his brain around it. And then when he finally did, he said, oh, it's a good thing. But it took a lot to get to that point, and so I didn't have the support of my family for a large portion of that, and still don't. I think that that's a really tricky situation, and you should always approach everything with compassion and empathy. And it is your child, I see people come and they try to drag their kids away, and that doesn't work sometimes. Sometimes it does. Sometimes that's what, somebody might be holding out for, is for someone to come and make them feel like, they're loved or wanted, and there's that aspect there. But then there are some people that are still dealing with things inside, and so they don't want they're gonna push back against that. So I've seen it go both ways. if it was my child, I mean, I would be out there trying to understand what was going on, I think, and because it's such a complicated thing to understand, you really can't, if you've never been subjected to poverty, you don't know what poverty is like until you experience it. And that's the truth, because I didn't know what it was like. I had all kinds of ideas, but I didn't even really know how deep the rabbit hole went until I got out on the street. And it took a good year and a half of adjusting to be able to be, as secure with myself as I am now. So it's like, I don't care what you say about me, just talk about me.
Great. No, great stuff. Hopefully that helped. Total Control 871, who is one of my ornery friends in New Jersey. I think you're in New Jersey, right? I know you're close to Philadelphia. And he asks, what are you going to do on your first day in office?
Um, oh, well, we're going to actually have a meeting, that's for sure, because I know that the CNC is renowned for canceling its meetings. So, but that's been postponed indefinitely as well, as all city activities have been suspended until, coronavirus.
Yeah. And on that is a good segue. I Rivas, hopefully I'm saying your name right, is asking, now with gyms closed, where is everybody going to take showers?
I posted on Facebook not to worry about the toilet paper or the bathing, and because it was raining outside, so I guess that's pretty much, I just haven't bathed. I mean, to be quite frank and honest with you, I think it's been about 2 weeks since that happened, and I was slated to go to the gym the day before, and didn't end up making it, and then missed it. I was like, found out the next day that they had closed at midnight, and that was it. And I was like, oh man, I was so bummed about not being able to get into the jacuzzi one more time. But yeah, what are we going to do? I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to do something. I think a lot of people are just showering, out in the open, which I've heard at some meetings, the NIMBY community say, and they get naked. Oh no! It's like, yeah, people do that occasionally,
Yeah.
especially they've been closed for days.
What drives me crazy is so they complain about people outside. They complain about people doing drugs. I mean, homelessness sucks. You're going to the bathroom behind a McDonald's dumpster. You might as well have a beer. I'm not advocating alcohol. I'm just saying life sucks, right? Soccer mom's hitting the pipe. The postman's, drinking a little bottle to get through the day. The lawyer's hitting the lines, right? Homelessness sucks. But the NIMBYs are always going, well, they're doing drugs, they're doing drugs, they're doing drugs. And now that they're doing these rec centers and everything else, and they're doing drugs inside, they're doing drugs. Well, you're complaining that they're on your corner, and then when you're just complaining. Be part of the solution.
People doing drugs, and why aren't they sharing?
So the one thing that I is a concern of mine is how is everybody getting food? Because often it's foot traffic. People panhandle. They get food from walkers by. That's a dominant way for homeless people to get support, food. And that's stopped. Restaurants often will give leftovers. That's stopped. Many food banks and ministries have, they run on volunteers who are often seniors and they are often home. There is definitely a shortage of food. How are people getting by?
Yeah, that was something that we were totally unprepared for. And sometimes we do this thing where if people are hungry in the community, I'll go around and I'll ask people to pitch in $1 or $2 or $3, and then we'll make something for everybody. But we went to the store and found that there was nothing there. And so we were all kind of caught off guard by that. And we can't keep food, for a long time. So it's always like when we would get donations of food before, it'd be all this perishable stuff, and a lot of it would go bad. I mean, and So, the food thing is like, it's sometimes it's too much and sometimes it's not enough. It's always not enough when you need it, like, and so, with this, I've been getting food for a lot of people. I've actually spent the last like 4 days now trying to do this food thing and on my bicycle, um, except for today where somebody gave me a ride to the grocery store, and we were able to get like a week's worth of food if we cook all together, which pretty much is going to be me cooking because I'm one of the better cooks. So,
Well, how do
and I don't
you got a tent?
like
You got a tent set up, right? I mean, we almost did this last week, and she called from her tent, but because it's raining, she's visiting one of her unhoused neighbors in their RV. But how do you cook? It's like,
well,
go ahead.
I have a propane stove. I have a propane stove, but that's always been a thing. And being kind of rural, and this some people are going to be like, "Oh no, of course. How do we cook?" Well, if you don't have anything else, it's with fire, obviously. And that had been one of my pushes was to get a thing started where we could get fire extinguishers out to the homeless communities so that we wouldn't have these like fires erupting everywhere. But they don't. You generally start by homeless people. They just
Right.
happen to be a lot of homeless people, so it pops up right next to you or something. And I've been there with a lot of fires, but we cook on fire, like barbecue, a lot of barbecue stuff, or a lot of pancakes that taste like smoke, uh, too. And but I have a propane stove, which is contraband, as I understand it in Los Angeles. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
am
Shh.
sort of heinous crime. Ah, but I feel like if I bought it at Lowe's or Home Depot, then I have every right to use it in the manner prescribed. And
You
so
have
you
to
can't take it.
survive. You have to
Yeah.
survive.
That's why we need these devices was so we can have safer ways of cooking because fire generally tends to get out of control real quick, especially when it's
Right.
around plastic.
Right.
I don't know how many people have ever been around a tarp that caught fire, but
Well,
it
somebody
ignites
just asked, what about fires? Which is,
fire. I've been in an encampment when a Molotov cocktail has been thrown in the middle of the night. That was crazy because everything went up in flame. I mean, it was the middle of summer too. It's like 3:30 in the morning. And you hear this boom, and then all of a sudden the flames are shooting up, and then people are kind of confused and stuff. Then that's where the propane tanks explode. But generally, they don't explode on their own. They have to be ignited in some way. So
right.
it's kind of
Most people take care of, their camps, and they take care of safety. They don't want to burn up. One of the things that's happening that's really scary. Oops, go ahead.
I was gonna say you don't want a bunch of cops in the fire department there, for starting a fire on accident either. So,
Yeah.
and the Woolsey Canyon fire did not start in a homeless community. There is no homeless encampment in the field test laboratory of Rocketdyne or JPL. I'm not aware of that. Besides,
Yeah.
I think they would probably have like an arm coming out of their forehead from the radioactive
Yeah.
waste.
One of the things that's happening, and it's happening a lot in Skid Row, and I know in the Sepulveda Basin, which is also the valley, and I'm sure it happens in other communities, is gangs tax homeless people. So if you're out panhandling all day, they want a piece of it, and or whatever, however you're raising money. And if you don't, they burn down your tent. That is happening far too much. It is horrible. It's horrible for the homeless person who loses everything, and it is a safety risk. That is much more concerning to me on many levels. The homeless people that I know that survive outside take care to make sure that they're not going to burn up. Like you said, they have a vested interest in keeping their environment safe.
Yeah. It's like, it's always like, in a community, it's just like getting an apartment building where you don't really get to pick your neighbors. They're just kind of, we're all just thrown in together. And if somebody finds a spot, that's kind of out of the way where they're not going to get messed with and there's not a lot of foot traffic, if that's what, and a lot of people do prefer that out here because that is an option, so then people tend to gravitate next to it, and then what are you going to do? You can't tell somebody, you can't put your tent up next to me,
Right.
but that does happen sometimes. You got people like, pacing back and forth with machete or something. I'm kidding, but going, this is my square.
Right.
That's just me. Actually, that's just me. So, and it's not very scary, but
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um,
Yeah, but but then so you end up with all these people that are just neighbors by circumstance, So like, and there's all this,
yeah,
like I
yeah.
said, politics.
So, Army of Gog asked about soup kitchens, and that's what's happening in rural communities too. Right now, I think in Vegas, everything's shut down after the casinos and everything closed. A homeless advocate friend of mine walked up on a dead homeless person yesterday who dehydrated because there's no casinos for them to go in, no restaurants to get a drink out of the sink or anything, and food kitchens and charities are not going out. They're, again, a lot of them are made up of senior citizens who have retired who are staying home. So it's a very real crisis. We're all suffering. I'm worried homeless people are going to suffer the most. So we're getting down to the very end here. In fact, we just went over. Rita has been a wonderful guest. And if you guys have a last question, I'd be happy to ask Rita. But while you're thinking about that, so Rita, what's next for you? What is going to happen? I know. No, better yet, how can people help with your campaign? I know everything's on pause because of the voting. So basically, this is freeform. Whatever you want to say, it's yours.
Okay, I like that. But I guess if you want to support, you could always get a library card and come all the way to Chatsworth to vote at the train depot. But you can also, support my campaign by trying to, close this gap of understanding between the communities of housed and unhoused by, you know, um, trying to pitch in a little bit or being more understanding of your local unhoused neighbor, and I think a lot of people end up seeing, people with severe mental illnesses or, that have been, or experienced some sort of like earth-shaking tragedy or trauma that has made them kind of flip their switch. And, some people also feed on that attention that they get too. So I think a lot of people are more accustomed to that stereotypical scary type of homeless person, and I think that that actually just pushes people a lot more, away from ever being able to come back to what I guess was considered normal or socially acceptable. And so, I mean, we're about to see a radical change in what is socially acceptable when you have a lot of people who are going to be newly homeless because they're losing their jobs and their places, just like we all did out here. You can say what you want, but it's the same set of circumstances in a different scenario.
Right.
And so we are already seeing an influx of a lot of people. We've seen our community grow exponentially. I know that there is at least just in a 2 mile section of track, there is nearly 100 people. And how, then there are, bigger questions. How do we keep it, keep, trash moving out when the city won't pick it up? And that sort of thing. We finally got a hand washing station. So like it's important to be understanding and let people tell you, collectively, I might add, what they need, rather than, sometimes people get gung ho and they bring a bunch of stuff out and it's just, like I've gotten a bag of baby clothes before. I don't know who has a baby out here on the tracks. No one, because DCFS has taken all of the children.
Yeah.
So I was like, here, you throw this away. I mean, I'm gonna haul it on my bike all the way across town to go redonate it or something like that. So it's kind of just think about it, and that's what I ask people to do is just stop and think, take a couple deep breaths, don't panic. We can get through this as long as we think, and not jump the gun.
Yeah.
But then you have a society of people that are hoarding toilet paper.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of well-intentioned people. My story that I like to tell, I was in Boston, and all the homeless people, I had packets of oatmeal Oh, I mean, I would walk a block and every homeless person had packets of oatmeal. You could see them sticking out of their pockets or their bags or whatever. I mean, it was a thing. And so finally I asked, I said, where'd you guys get the oatmeal? And they said, some well-intentioned people came walking around and gave him packets of instant oatmeal. Well, they didn't give him a bowl. They didn't give him a water. They didn't give him a cup. They didn't give him a microwave. They didn't give him a spoon. They just gave him packets of oatmeal. Now, I know they meant well, but sometimes you have to think in reverse, and if you work in homeless services, I had an interaction with one of the leaders of LASA yesterday, because they're sending out all this information about shelters and bus pickups, which is important, but they're putting it in a format that homeless people can't read from their phones. So, it's crazy. Anyways, we're getting down towards
that medieval thing where it's like, you're gonna want some water, where you're gonna have to cup your hands and drink it, as this, and while you're on your knees or something like that,
So in the description is a link to a recent story the news did on Rita and her running for office. It's also a link to her GoFundMe. Please donate. I am grateful to the people that donated to Invisible People tonight. We don't ask for it. In the future, we may be, because things are getting tight right now. We had a system that we thought this was the year Invisible People was going to grow, where I could hire myself. And that just all crashed. So, but the money that was donated to Invisible People, we're going to give to Rita. And so I'm very grateful that you guys have supported, because that's what you donate to Invisible People so we can help homeless people. We don't normally, it's not that we don't normally, we're not a direct support. We're education and awareness. We're trying to end homelessness, right? A sandwich isn't going to end homelessness. There's a lot of people that give sandwiches. It's great. So we're direct support. You wanted to say something. Go.
I was saying, and outdated services card is not going to help either.
Yeah.
Like here, you can go get a shower in Pomona when you're in the West Valley. Like that's great. If I was going to take a 2.5-hour bus ride out there,
right? It's not close. So I also have a lot of like K-Town for All. There's a North Hollywood ministry. There's Legal Aid. I put a list, and there's a link in the description. And there's so much more. There's some in your state. There's so much more in California. But instead of giving to a big nonprofit that is going to then take out admin expense to give to a little nonprofit, the little nonprofits need help. And I put some recommendations down below. And I added the link to the most recent mini doc. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody that donated. Thank you, Rita. This has been wonderful.
I just wanted to say that H- is a social welfare organization.
Okay.
501c4. So
what is H-?
Oh, H- is my group of it's basically an organization consisting of all homeless individuals. We have about 200 members right now and ever expanding. And basically I'm trying to get people to collectively join as members so that we can get a tour de force going, because they won't listen to one of us. They might as well listen to,
awesome.
Several of us.
Very, very cool.
Thousands of us, hopefully.
Yeah. So thank you very much for spending an hour with us tonight. And all of you, we are going to be here next Sunday night. I might do a couple more live streams during the week, more educational. We'll see. I just really, right now is a tough time. Call your friends, email them, hug people. Wait, social distancing. I guess you can't hug people, right? Hug them from a distance.
His Wi-Fi's out too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough time. We're gonna get through it. I know I'm struggling. Everybody's struggling, and just please stay safe. It's just a really, really weird time, and we all need to stay together from apart, as they say. So once
Don't
again, what?
panic. And don't panic.
And don't panic.
Yeah.
Don't panic. So, uh, until next week. Oh, and people are already asking for you to come back. So, Rita, we're going to have you back someday soon. So, thank you everybody for joining us this Sunday night. It's been wonderful.
Right on. Thank you so much for having me.